Welcome to the Connect Secure Administration and Maintenance e-learning video. In this session, we will review resource policy options. In addition to the access control resource policies, Pulse Connect Secure offers several other resource policy options for a variety of resources. We will now take a look at Web Resource Policies Customized View. Other web resource policies include caching and caching options. This uses the caching tabs to write web access resource policies and specify general caching options. Another policy is Java Access Control, Java Code Signing, and Applets. This uses the Java tabs to write resource policies that control to which servers and ports Java applets can connect and to specify how Pulse Connect Secure rewrites Java applets. Another policy is selective rewriting, pass-through, proxy, and ActiveX parameter rewriting. This uses the rewriting tabs to write selective rewriting resource policies, pass-through proxy resource policies, and ActiveX parameter rewriting resource policies. Another policy is SSO form post and SSO cookies/headers. This uses the SSO tabs to write remote SSO form post resource policies and header and cookie resource policies. Another policy is SAML SSL and SAML access control. This uses the SAML tabs to write Security Assertion Markup Language, or SAML, SSO artifact and resource policies, write SAML post profile resource policies, and enable access control transactions. Another policy is Web Proxy Policies and Web Proxy Servers. This uses the Web Proxy tabs to write Web Proxy resource policies and specified Web Proxy servers. Another policy is Launch JSAM. This uses the Launch JSAM tab to write a Launch JSAM resource policy. And finally, the last policy is Options. This uses the Options tab to specify web resource options. Now, we will take a look at web caching policies. By default, browser caching is disabled so that Pulse Connect Secure marks all pages served to remote users as non-cacheable. This setting prevents confidential pages from remaining on remote machines after a user closes a browser. This option might slow browsing by causing repeated content fetches, which can result in performance issues on very slow connections. When you write a web caching policy, the parameters are the same as for other policies, with the exception of the action. Instead of allow or deny, you choose from one of the 5 available actions. One action is Smart Caching. Selecting this option will allow Pulse Connect Secure to send a cache control no store header or a Pragma no cache header based on the user's web browser and content type. Selecting this option makes media files and zip files work properly by removing their origin server's cache control headers. Another action is Don't Cache. Send cache control no store. By selecting this action, this option delivers attachments to Internet Explorer without saving them to the disk. The browser temporarily writes files to the disk, but it immediately removes them once it has opened the file in the browser. Another action is Don't Cache. Send Pragma no cache. Selecting this option prevents the user's browser from caching files to the disk. It's important to note that sending the no cache headers for many types of attachments, PDFs, PowerPoints, or streaming files, for example, makes Internet Explorer unable to render the documents because the browser must temporarily write these documents into the cache to render them. Another action is to cache. Do not add or modify caching headers. With this action, files are cached to the disk as requested by the original web page. The final possible action is Use Detailed Rules, available after you click Save Changes. This allows you to specify one or more detailed rules for this policy. When it comes to web caching options, the option shown on this screen sets the maximum image file size that is cached on a client. If the content type header from the origin server begins with image/ and the content length header specifies a size less than the maximum size configured for this option, Pulse Connect Secure passes along the origin server's caching headers. Otherwise, Pulse Connect Secure treats the request as though caching is disabled. Please note that this setting overrides any configured caching policy. However, it applies only to the image/ content type. When it comes to web policy options, you can enable IP-based matching for hostname-based policy resources, as well as case-sensitive matching from the Web Policy Options menu. Next, we will take a look at file resource policies. When it comes to file policy options, there are a few options available. One option is IP-based matching for hostname-based policy resources. This allows Pulse Connect Secure to look up IP addresses corresponding to each hostname specified in a file resource policy. When a user tries to access a server by specifying an IP address rather than the hostname, Pulse Connect Secure compares the IP address to its cached list of IP addresses to determine whether a hostname matches an IP address. If a match occurs, Pulse Connect Secure accepts the match as a policy match and applies the action specified for the resource policy. Another file option is case-sensitive matching for the path component in file resources. By selecting this option, it will require users to enter a case-sensitive URL to an NFS resource. Use this option when passing username or password data in a URL. Another file option is to allow NT-LAN Manager version 1. By selecting this option, it will allow NT-LAN Manager version 1 authentication if Kerberos authentication of administrator credentials fail. When looking at file policy options, the encoding option specifies how Pulse Connect Secure encodes data when interacting with file servers. You can take a look at the image to see what options are available for encoding. This concludes this Connect Secure Administration and Maintenance e-learning video. Please proceed to the next video in this series. For any questions, contact education@pulsecure.net.